Hey, my guest will be Mr. Jack Brosch. He's the candidate for the 12th Congressional District of North Carolina. How you doing there, Mr. Brosch?
Doing good, Mr. Brown. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. Thank you for coming on the show. Tell the viewing audience a little bit about Jack Brosch.
Jack Brosch from California. I've been out here now for about 18 years. I moved out here with a company transfer. Had some differences of opinion. They kind of wanted some micromanagement, and I kind of allow more free thinking of my employees. So went back on the road as a computer consultant. Actually lived in Charlotte, worked up in Boston for about 4 years, flying Monday, Thursday commute. Came back, did made a career transition. Financial services, 2004, 2008, the downturn in the economy kind of changed that. Got a little involved with the politics here in Mecklenburg, and last year in October decided to go ahead and make a run for U.S. Congress.
What was the biggest reason for you wanting to run for Congress?
Well, you know, I find that you can only do so much beer drinking, and you can only do so much complaining. Family, friends kind of get a little tired, and eventually they say, you know, why don't you do something about it? And you say to yourself, why don't you do something about it? So I decided to go ahead and run. I think, you know, our republic works best when you have a choice. And I see myself as that choice in North Carolina's 12th District.
Okay, your opponent, he has had that position for a number of years. What was it about it? I mean, it's kind of like you're in a David and Goliath type. Like, what makes Jack Brosch know that he can win this battle?
Well, I definitely I agree with your assessment as the district, David and Goliath. And if I should be blessed to win the 12th district, one of the first things I will be doing is dropping to my knees and giving the Lord thanks, because it's only going to be with Him that I'm going to be able to win this district. But I think the 12th district has been underserved by its current congressman, as well, I'm sorry to say in some ways, by some of the past candidates. I think you need to get out there. You need to go to all parts of the community, and by that I do mean the minority, the black community, and the black churches and so forth, in order to spread your message and give everybody the choice to vote for you. So I'm doing that a little bit more in the 12th district, I think, than past candidates have. And by doing that, I'm also trying to show the Republican Party that we can take back, and our policies and our philosophy deserve to be listened to in the minority community. So I'm trying to kind of use this campaign as an effort to move that philosophy forward.
As a citizen of this community and a voter, what should I be able to expect from yourself in the 12th Congressional District as a Congressman?
Well, one of the things that I bring to the 12th District is access. I find it rather interesting. There are actually 6 counties in the 12th District, and there are 12 months in the year. And I think those numbers work out pretty well for a town hall every other month somewhere in the 12th District. Making myself available to the constituents of the 12th District to explain my policies, to explain my votes, to ask them what do they see as the issues that I, as a representative, as their employee, should be addressing up in Washington, and have that conversation one-on-one with constituents, face-to-face where possible. Not to say that I would eschew, telephone and other means of communication, but I want to make myself available to the constituents of the 12th so we can have that dialogue.
Some of the issues that we have in our community that we will be discussing, one of them is the issue of jobs, unemployment. How would you assist in making that type of change?
Well, jobs definitely needs to be one of the priorities here in the 12th District, North Carolina, and America as a whole.
Correct.
I think that's one of the problems that's facing this economy. I think some of the solutions include getting a training program that will align the skill set of the unemployed with the jobs that are out there. I mean, you can always open up the Help Wanted section of the newspaper. They still print want ads. You can go online to Monster for Monster, and a site called Dice for IT professionals, and you can always find jobs. So sometimes there are jobs out there, and we just need to focus, or not. We just need to focus, but we need to focus a little bit more on training people for those jobs that are out there. I also think in North Carolina we need to get the oil and natural gas industry under production. I think that'll be one way that we can help return not only jobs to America, but also security. And then last but not least is get government out of your business. You run a production company here, with the TV studio.
Right.
And you may be able to hire a few more people if we were to allow you to loosen up some of the time you spend filling out government paperwork, complying with regulations and so forth. And being able to move that ball slowly down the road, one small business at a time, will help us to return to full employment.
Taxes. That's another big issue that we have within our community and within the country. How do we handle that as far as taxes?
Well, one of the things I think you see the back of my business card where I have my policy stances as well as my website, that I don't believe in raising the tax rate. But I do believe that we can raise tax revenue by a combination of closing some of the loopholes so that we do make a little bit flatter and a fairer field for those that are trying to work and trying to produce in America. Right now, with having less than 50% of the American population paying payroll tax, kind of makes them at a little disadvantage, and they don't quite understand some of the trials and tribulations of those that pay the payroll taxes as well as the income taxes go through. So I see by closing some of those loopholes that we can advance the economy, as well as returning a lot of people to work will increase the tax revenues by making their productive members of society. So I think that's kind of a multi-pronged agenda.
How do we deal with the issue of health care?
Healthcare, I'm very much behind the Republican policy of repeal and replace. The GOP website has 8 individual programs. Paul Ryan, in his Path to Prosperity, has some recommendations. But one of the things that I believe is that we need to have programs that can be voted on separately or individually, as opposed to one monstrosity. If an idea or a concept is good for America, it's good for the citizens of the 12th, it should be able to stand on its own. Some concepts that I believe in are being able to sell insurance across state lines. I was a financial advisor, so I have a little understanding as to the benefit of that. And then also I think that the tort reform is another area that we should look at for being able to restore the health care and get health care out to the people. By one of the things, it was called the Affordable Care Act because it was supposed to focus on cost. I think those are a couple of areas that will help to reduce cost. As well as both IBM and a local North Carolina company called SAS has computer programs that will help Medicare ferret out fraud, waste, and abuse. And if we can get that reduced, that money can be reinvested into healthcare as well. So more areas that are out there are on my website, as well as the Republican GOP.gov website.
When running an office and when you're inside office, why is it so important to be able to work along not only with Republicans but with your Democratic fellow, colleagues?
Well, very seldom do we have one party that has control of all 3 branches. Mm-hmm. So no matter what you do in that aspect, you have the potential for some resistance. Unfortunately, over the last couple of years, I think we've seen Harry Reid shovel off a lot of the Senate's work that never gets heard on the floor, never gets brought to a vote. And I think that's wrong. I think we ought to be able to have a full hearing and up or down vote, be able to vote on an issue. So I think that we need to be able to work with each other to be able to advance our policies and what we think is good, for the citizens of the 12th, as I've said before, as well as citizens of America, will be good for people, across the country, and that can be a solution on a bipartisan basis.
If there were any possible, being that you're in the 12th district, and if you have like a certain nationality, how would you go about working to make it a win-win situation for both parties, for yourself and for the people that you're representing?
Well, there's an old, right now, a lot of people are talking about compromise, and whether or not compromise is a dirty word in Washington. And for me, there are issues that you can compromise on. The real simple example that I use is a sidewalk. Do you want a 3-foot sidewalk or a 4-foot sidewalk? Do you want to pour it for 200 feet or do you want to pour it for 250 feet? Those are things that can be compromised on. Things like abortion, that baby is either alive or dead. So I have some issues as to, you can't always compromise on your core principles or your values, but you can compromise around the edges on some of the more subtler things in the implementation of your policies.
I know there's a lot of issues dealing with the rights of women. Why is that so? Is that one of the biggest agendas that you would have to deal with, and their rights?
I think right now a lot of politics have become divisive. And I think a lot of times we're trying to separate young, old. We're trying to separate male, female. We're trying to separate black and white in some of the political policies that are out there. I think healthcare for women is one of them. And what does it mean to have choice? And I think sometimes unfortunately, now your show's the exception, but I think a lot of times on TV when you got 15 and 30-second sound bites, I understand now they're even going down to 10-second sound bites. It's awful hard to get the intricacies out there of what a comprehensive healthcare program means or fixing the economy. It's a lot harder, and I think unfortunately a lot of people in the media use these sound bites to advance an agenda, and that makes it difficult. So that's one of the reasons that I think, I want to be out there for the town hall meetings where my constituents have a chance to hear me for 60 minutes. Not 60 seconds, but 60 minutes to hear the full comprehensive, and the interaction to be able to ask me questions helps to advance that as well. Going back to your question regarding health care, I think there's a lot of overlap that, we're hitting around the edges on some of the things that allow us to differentiate ourselves in the middle of a political election season.
Okay, I know you're a prior military. How do we assist our military who coming out, as far as out of the military, coming into the workforce? How do we assist them in getting this employment, housing, because we're also having a lot of homelessness within the veterans?
I think we're also, if I may even extend that, we're also having a lot of PTSD, a lot of psychological issues. And I did serve 3 years in the Navy, so I kind of have a little bit of a better understanding there. I think we need to be able to encourage them, encourage the returning veterans to apply for educational grants. We should encourage companies to hire them, making that transition available for them. I also think that we need to have kind of a multi-pronged approach. For those that get into trouble, whether it's legal trouble, I think there was a show on 60 Minutes a week ago Sunday that was talking about a veterans court that was specifically structured for returning veterans that were having issues with PTSD, being able to help them to address the issues of PTSD, and if they went through the 2-year program, successfully completing it, their record would be wiped clean so that they would be able to start anew. And I think that's real important because I think a lot of returning veterans, they still have that structure. They're still familiar with the structure of the military, and sometimes they have a little bit of problem with the freedom and everything of coming back to civilian life. I also think that the federal government can do a much better job of supporting them when they come back. We've been in military conflicts, substantial military conflicts now for almost 90 years, ever since World War I. And I think we should know by now what is it going to cost, not only to outfit and put that military person in the field, but also to bring him home and to get him back acclimated in society, whether that is psychological assistance or whether that's retraining in the educational community. I think these are things that we should be able to commit to up front when we put that veteran into the field. We may not know what John Smith needs when he returns, but we take 100 veterans, we know roughly 22% of those people are going to need some psychological assistance reacclimating into society. And we should be ready to provide for that up front when we send them to war. As far as the homeless situation goes, again, the same situation that I mentioned before is to encourage